The stable doors creaked open at dawn with a soft sigh as the retired combat horse stood in its familiar stall, its coat dusted with the soft glow of morning light, sniffing faint traces of salt and dust for battlefields. It lowered its large head to nibble fresh hay in its feed trough, its strong neck muscles relaxed after years of rest away from the battlefield. The veteran who had once ridden this brave horse into faraway fields walked quietly, his steps soft on the straw-covered floor. He stopped a short distance away, his heart beating fast as he looked at the calm horse he had known during times of fear and bravery. The horse swished its tail and moved its ears toward the sounds of life on the quiet farm. It looked into the veteran's kind eyes but did not move any hoof, as if it no longer remembered the voice that once spoke softly to it. A knot grew in the veteran's throat as he saw the empty look in the horse's eyes, a bond broken by the long time they had been apart. For years, they had raced through smoke and sand together, helping each other through danger and pain. Now they stood under tall oaks that shaded the paddock, separated by an invisible wall of memory and loss. The breeze rustled through leaves overhead, carrying the scent of wildflowers and new grass where battles once raged in their shared mind. The veteran knelt beside an empty water bucket that the horse had just ignored, struggling to hold back sadness. He reached out a trembling hand, longing to touch the animal's warm muzzle with the same respectful salute they once shared. But the horse did not lean into the veteran's touch or lower its head as it had on their first training day. Instead, it blinked slowly and turned away, its hind legs shifting as it moved toward the open pasture beyond. The veteran rose to his feet, pain coursing through his chest at the sight of the creature he loved refusing to welcome him back. He followed the horse through the barnyard, his footsteps echoing in the morning dew that dampened the wooden planks. With each step, he remembered the crack of rifle fire and the thunder of distant shells that once echoed across them both. He recalled the whispered names they gave each other before dawn and the promises that none would leave the other behind. Now, those promises felt like echoes lost to memory, fading as the sun climbed higher in the sky. He paused at the pasture fence, watching as the horse stepped into the dew-drenched grass. The animal raised its head to sniff the crisp air, tasting freedom and safety in every breath. It kicked out one hoof at a stubborn clump of sod, scattering dirt that glistened like tiny jewels in early light. The veteran smiled weakly at the sight, remembering how the horse once danced across open fields after each mission's end. Each memory pressed against his mind with bittersweet force, reminding him of the trust they once shared without words. The horse turned slowly and met the veteran's gaze again, its dark eyes calm but distant like it saw a stranger. A heavy silence settled between them as the veteran drew a quiet breath and wiped a tear from his weathered cheek. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch filled with sweet apples that had always been the horse's favorite treat. He held the pouch out with both hands, his voice gentle as he spoke the animal's old name with hope in each syllable. The horse's ears perked up at its name, but it still did not move toward the apples or lower its head. The veteran's heart sank as he realized that time and new beginnings had changed this noble creature as surely as the years had changed him. He knelt once more and opened the pouch, allowing the apples to spill out in a bright, colorful pile on the grass below. A lone apple rolled away from the others, bouncing softly as it came to rest by the horse's hoof. The animal stared at the apple with curious eyes, its head tilting in a way that reminded the veteran of their first day together. A tiny spark of recognition flickered across the horse's face as it lowered a careful lip to examine the fruit, sniffing faint traces of salt and dust for battlefields. The veteran held his breath, hope rising at the thought that something deep inside the horse still remembered him. The animal nudged the apple with its nose, sending it gently across the grass toward the veteran's hand. With a trembling smile, the veteran reached out and caught the apple in his palm as though it were a precious gift. He leaned forward and whispered soft words of encouragement, his voice filled with relief and wonder at the horse's reply. A low whuffle escaped the horse as it nuzzled the veteran's hand, bridging the gap between memory and reality. In that quiet moment of shared understanding, the barnyard seemed to hold its breath as old bonds began to spark back to life. After the horse nudged the small shiny apple across the dew-kissed grass toward him, the veteran picked it up gently, its smooth skin cool against his weathered palm, and hope surged deep within him. He placed the apple on his knee and offered it again, speaking the horse's name softly, his voice trembling with emotion that had lain dormant through long, lonely nights filled with longing. The horse lowered its head and touched the fruit with a gentle lip, tasting the sweetness as if recalling happier days spent racing across distant fields with quiet longing. A rush of relief and wonder flooded the veteran's mind as he watched their silent reunion unfold, each breath the horse took seeming to draw him closer than ever before. He rose slowly to his feet, savoring the warmth of the moment, and reached for the bridle that hung nearby. Its leather worn but still strong and resolute. The horse stepped forward obediently, its hooves making soft thuds on the straw-lined floor, its ears flicking as if remembering each silent cue from years ago and trusting its old friend without hesitation and with gentle eagerness. He fastened the bridle around the horse's head with steady hands warmed by emotion, using gentle practiced movements that felt familiar and fitting after so many silent years apart, with heartfelt care. The veteran felt a flood of memories wash over him. Training drills at first light, muddy fields after heavy rain, and the comforting weight of the horse's steady body and quiet comfort. He lifted a hand to stroke the horse's neck, feeling the rough hair and smooth hide shift beneath his palm with each gentle motion, remembering the sound of their shared heartbeat in calm moments and silent gratitude. Then he led the horse out through the barn doors into the bright morning light, where green pastures stretched toward a distant tree line, and the stable-wood floor gave way to soft grass and warm earth beneath their feet. Dew clung to each blade of grass, sparkling in the sun like thousands of tiny crystals that covered the rolling hills and danced in every gentle breeze that passed over the pasture, shimmering gently. The veteran took a deep breath, enjoying the sweet scent of fresh grass and wildflowers mingling gently with the clean morning air as they walked side by side in peaceful unity. A soft breeze ruffled the veteran's hair and made the horse's long mane dance, linking them both in the gentle morning moment with a quiet sense of shared calm and gentle warmth. They strolled together toward a narrow dirt path that wound around a still pond, and then led them gently toward the shaded woods beyond the open field in quiet companionship. Bright dragonflies hovered above the water's surface, their delicate wings catching sunlight as they darted back and forth in playful, glittering patterns near the pond's edge like living jewels. The veteran smiled as he watched the colorful insects dance above the water, feeling a lightness in his spirit that he had not known in many long, quiet years with a grateful heart. They paused at the water's edge, the horse dipping its muzzle to sip cool liquid, while the veteran gazed at their reflections mingled together on the still, glassy surface in silent reflection. He knelt beside the horse and gently patted its neck, marveling at how its muscles had softened over time, yet still held firm strength beneath the calm exterior with deep respect. A faint bird's song drifted softly from the trees, adding a peaceful natural soundtrack to the reunion of two old friends long separated by time and distance in soft harmony. The horse shook its head gently, sending tiny droplets of water flying in sparkling arcs under the bright sun, as if celebrating the return of its companion with joyful abandon. He stood and brushed stray grass clippings from the horse's strong legs before guiding it down the winding path toward the old training arena tucked beneath shaded oaks with steady confidence. Along the trail, clusters of wild berries nestled among ferns, their bright red hues a reminder of simple pleasures still waiting to be enjoyed by those who paused to notice with open hearts. He paused to let the horse nibble a berry, watching as its gentle lips plucked the fruit with surprising care and enjoying the small, sweet treat himself in quiet delight. They continued on toward the clearing where weathered wooden poles and old hurdles stood silent under a ring of tall grass that swayed around them in perfect silence. The veteran felt a pang of nostalgia as he remembered teaching the horse to jump each fence with careful guidance and confidence during training sessions long ago with warm affection. He removed the saddle blanket and replaced it gently with a fresh one before sliding the familiar saddle into place and fastening the straps snugly around the horse's belly gently and securely. The horse stood patiently, its head lowered in trust as the veteran checked each buckle and strap with care, ensuring a secure but comfortable fit with patient calm. He adjusted the stirrups to the perfect length, remembering how they had once moved together in perfect harmony across fields and battlefields alike with precise memory. He stepped back and patted the horse's broad flank to signal readiness before raising one foot over the saddle and climbing in with practiced ease with steady balance. The horse shifted its weight and carried the rider with ease, its powerful muscles rippling beneath the polished saddle leather in a familiar, reassuring motion and faithful strength. He settled comfortably into the saddle and felt the gentle rise and fall of the horse's broad back beneath him as they readied themselves to move together in perfect harmony. A strand of morning light broke through the trees and cast gentle moving shadows across the horse's gleaming coat, highlighting every curve and muscle with soft amber tones and golden light. The veteran's heart filled with pride as he whispered a soft command to walk forward, his voice calm and steady like an old familiar melody filled with warmth. With careful measured steps, the horse moved along the grassy lane, its hooves barely making a sound on the soft earth and blending seamlessly with the quiet morning in gentle peace. They passed clusters of wild daisies dotted along the narrow path, their white petals bright against green grass that swayed gently whenever a breeze drifted by in silent grace. The horse's ears pricked sharply as a small squirrel darted up a nearby tree, adding a spark of playful energy and reminding them both of youthful days and bright memories. They approached a low fallen log that once served as a jump, and the veteran gently guided the horse over it, trusting that old bond and careful teaching with quiet trust. The horse's powerful haunches flexed as it lifted its legs high with confidence, clearing the log in a single, graceful motion and landing softly on the other side in graceful strength. The veteran laughed aloud, feeling a thrill of pride and pure joy surge through him after so long apart as he patted the horse's shoulder with proud affection and heartfelt celebration. With their bond renewed by trust and shared memories, they continued down the sunlit path side by side, ready for whatever new journey and adventure awaited them beyond the horizon with hopeful hearts. The veteran felt the steady motion of the horse beneath him as they followed the winding trail through ancient oaks arching over their path like a natural cathedral. Bright moss clung to gnarled roots along the side of the trail, and the veteran recalled how they once took shelter under similar trees during fierce midday storms on distant fields. The horse trotted with sure confidence, its hooves striking the soft earth in a steady rhythm that matched the veteran's heartbeat in a comforting pattern of trust. Sunlight filtered through the leaves in shifting patterns of gold and emerald, dancing across the horse's coat as if nature itself celebrated their reunion. The veteran leaned forward slightly, murmuring the horse's name with a gentle tone that carried through the quiet forest air like a promise. The animal's ears flicked forward at the sound, its dark eyes brightening with curiosity as though remembering the soft cadence of its rider's voice. They arrived at a small clearing where wildflowers grew in colorful clusters, and the veteran guided the horse to a gentle halt beside tall purple blooms. The horse lifted its head to sniff at blossoms, its nostrils flaring as it tasted the sweet, heady scent of summer petals on the breeze. The veteran dismounted slowly and knelt to gather a handful of flowers, offering a small bouquet to the horse as a simple gift of gratitude. The animal nudged the blooms with its muzzle, then lowered its muzzle so the veteran could secure them behind its bridle with a soft ribbon. With the clearing decorated in cheerful colors, the veteran stood back and admired how the horse seemed to carry the blossoms proudly. He brushed his hand along the horse's neck, feeling the warmth of its breath as it exhaled gently and leaned its head into his palm. They continued onward to a quiet stream where water ran clear over smooth stones, and the veteran led the horse down to the pebbled bank. The horse drank deeply, sending ripples across the water that caught sunlight in tiny flashes of silver and blue. The veteran filled his palms with cool water and splashed his face, reveling in the simple joy of feeling refreshed after so many restless nights. He sat on a large flat rock while the horse grazed nearby, each companion content in the peaceful hush of the forest glade. A gentle breeze rustled the tall grasses, carrying the distant trill of songbirds hidden among the branches above in leafy shadows. The veteran closed his eyes and breathed deeply, allowing memories of battle and hardship to drift away like fallen leaves on the stream. When he opened his eyes, he saw the horse looking at him with steady affection, as if sensing every unspoken thought in his mind. He reached out and stroked the horse's forehead, marveling at how soft the fur felt despite years of wear and service. Gathering his strength, the veteran rose and prepared to remount, checking the saddle's fit and the buckles with careful, practiced motions. The horse stood patiently, its posture relaxed and trusting as though it knew it was safe in the veteran's capable hands. He climbed into the saddle once more, settling his weight evenly and feeling an old sense of purpose return with each steady breath. Together they rode toward a fallen log that stood across the trail, a simple challenge that once tested their teamwork and skill. The veteran guided the horse gently, whispering cues that sent them soaring over the log in a single elegant motion. Landing lightly, the horse continued forward without hesitation, its powerful legs propelling them smoothly down the shaded path. They emerged from the forest edge into an open meadow where tall grasses swayed beneath a cloudless sky of brilliant blue. The veteran urged the horse into a slow canter, feeling the wind rush past his face and hearing the steady pounding of hooves on soft ground. Wild horses stood at the far edge of the meadow, watching curiously as the veteran and his companion rode closer with friendly eyes. The lead stallion nickered softly and approached, earning a nicker in return from the veteran's horse as they greeted old friends. The three animals ran together in playful unity, tails flicking and manes flying as laughter rose in the veteran's chest. After a joyful circle, the wild horses drifted back to their herd, and the veteran guided his horse toward a shaded grove nearby. He dismounted again and reached into his coat pocket for a handful of oats, which he offered to his loyal companion and its new friends. The horse ate eagerly, then nudged each wild companion toward the veteran's hand so they too could share in the simple feast. Satisfied by the meal, his heart felt light as he realized that healing could come from unexpected places when one remained open to friendship. He patted the horse's shoulder and smiled at the herd before leading his companion back toward the forest path with renewed hope. The sunlight dimmed as they passed beneath the oak canopy again, but neither the veteran nor the horse felt fatigue or fear, only comfort. The veteran's heart swelled with pride and gratitude for every step and each shared moment of trust rekindled under the green boughs. As they neared the barn, the world beyond the forest's edge felt far away, and the veteran knew he had found peace at last. With the horse's measured steps carrying them home, the veteran whispered, "Thank you, old friend," and felt the bond between them grow stronger than ever. When their powerful hooves struck the wooden barn floor once more, echoing in soft thuds across the stalls, the veteran and his loyal horse stepped beneath tall, dusty rafters bathed in morning light. The veteran guided his companion through the barn's wide aisle, where beams of sunshine filtered through tiny holes in the old boards, casting dancing spots of brightness on piles of fresh straw and hay. He led the horse to a stall lined with clean, golden bedding that smelled sweet and fresh, then untied the sturdy lead rope with careful hands, mindful of the animal's comfort after their long journey. With a soft click, he lifted the polished leather saddle from the horse's back, easing each worn strap free as the creature stood still in patient trust and quiet calm. The veteran carried the saddle to a sturdy wooden rack along the wall and placed it gently over a beam glowing under the lantern's soft halo. Next, he removed the weathered bridle from the horse's head, unhooking each buckle slowly before laying it on a nearby bench beside neatly lined brushes and cloths. The horse closed its eyes as the veteran wiped away dried sweat from its forehead, using a soft cloth dipped in cool water to soothe its tired muscles. He then took a large brush with gentle bristles and began grooming the horse's dusty coat, working from its broad shoulders down each strong leg with steady, caring strokes. Bits of straw and hardened mud fell away as he brushed, scattering across the floor like tiny flecks of brown and gold, and the horse began to sway with contentment. When grooming was done, the veteran filled a heavy bucket with fresh water and guided the horse to lower its muzzle, watching as it drank eagerly to quench its thirst. He refilled the trough and offered a handful of bright orange carrots from a tin cup, holding them out until the animal nibbled each piece calmly and left none behind. With the horse fed and watered, the veteran hung the empty cup on a hook by the stall's entrance before grabbing a long-handled shovel to clear out old bedding. His practiced movements scooped damp straw from the corner, replacing it with fresh, soft layers to ensure the stall remained dry and cozy for the night. After smoothing the new bedding with a flat pitchfork, he stood back to pat the horse's neck, whispering words of thanks that carried across the barn like a gentle breeze. The veteran then fetched a smaller brush and polished the horse's hooves, using a hoof pick to clear each groove of small pebbles and hardened dirt with precise care. He admired the horse's powerful legs and perfectly shaped hooves as he worked, recalling how those same feet had carried them bravely through faraway battlefields. Once his chores were done, he closed the stall door behind the horse and let it outside through the half-open barn doors, breathing in the crisp morning air. They stepped onto dew-soaked grass and walked together toward a small paddock where sunlight painted long stripes of gold and green across the ground. The veteran paused beneath an ancient oak at the paddock's edge and loosened the lead rope, allowing the horse to step forward freely into the soft grass. The animal shook its mane and trotted in small circles, lifting each hoof confidently as if dancing in celebration of their reunion. The veteran smiled and sat on a low fence rail, swinging his legs gently as he watched the horse graze calmly under the bright sun. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small notebook filled with sketches and notes from days spent together in training and on long patrols. Flipping through the pages, he paused at a drawing of the horse rearing proudly atop a rocky hill, his younger self shouting encouragement in clear, strong tones. He touched the sketch softly, then opened a fresh page to record today's events, jotting down simple words of joy for their reunion and hopes for peaceful days ahead. After writing, the veteran closed the notebook and set it on the fence beside him, where it rested among wildflowers swaying in the gentle breeze. From his pocket, he retrieved a small jar of peppermint oil and dabbed a drop behind the horse's ears, kneading gently to ease any stiffness in its muscles. The horse nudged his hand and let out a soft whuffle of pleasure, reminding the veteran that their bond ran deep beneath years of change. They spent several peaceful minutes in companionable silence, the veteran watching clouds drift lazily across a perfect blue sky. Finally, the horse rose and shook its body free of grass seeds, sending them fluttering like tiny parachutes before tossing its mane. The veteran stood and opened the paddock gate, guiding the horse back toward the barn path that led to a cozy cabin he had built nearby. Inside the cabin, he set a kettle on a small stove and poured 2 mugs of warm peppermint tea, carrying them out on a wooden tray with soft care. He placed 1 mug on the fence rail and held the other, sipping the sweet brew as he watched his old friend nibble hay in the stall. The barnyard grew quiet as shadows lengthened and the sun dipped behind distant hills, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. The veteran called the horse's name in a gentle voice, and the animal lifted its head, its dark eyes reflecting the sunset's colors like a mirror. He finished his tea and rinsed the mugs in a small basin before returning them to the cabin, humming a calming tune that drifted into the evening air. With moonlight beginning to fill the sky, he led the horse back into its stall, closing the door softly and securing the latch. The veteran placed an extra handful of straw near the horse's head before stepping back to admire its peaceful posture in the dim light. He switched off the lantern and walked to the cabin door, pausing to gaze up at the stars that sparkled above the barn rooftops. Outside, a cool breeze carried the scent of pine and fresh earth, and the veteran stood quietly, feeling the calm of the night settle into his soul. In the hush of the barnyard under the watchful stars, both horse and veteran drifted into sleep, their day of reunion ending in trust, hope, and the promise of new beginnings. As dusk fell, the barnyard grew quiet except for distant cricket songs. The veteran finished cleaning his tools outside the cabin door. Inside, candlelight flickered across walls lined with medals and old maps. He set his hammer down and closed the cabin door with a gentle click. Outside, the horse stood in its stall, breathing softly in the cool air. A breeze rustled the barn's wooden boards, carrying a sudden chill. The animal's ears pricked forward as if it heard something beyond the fence. The veteran paused and listened, sensing unease in the stillness. He frowned at the horse's sudden alertness and stepped toward its stall. The creature shifted its weight and stamped 1 hoof on the floor. He reached out and rested a hand on its neck to calm it. Moonlight filtered through a narrow window, casting pale beams across straw. The veteran opened the stall door and motioned the horse outside. The paddock gate creaked as they entered the yard. Long shadows stretched across the ground like dark fingers. The horse whinnied softly, lifting its head to scan the night. The veteran's breath caught as he peered into the black fields. He thought he heard hoofbeats echoing from the empty pastures. His heart pounded as he strained to catch the sound again. The horse pulled gently on its lead, seeking to move forward. A low growl seemed to drift from the edge of the woods. The veteran called its name firmly, trying to reassure both of them. The animal hesitated, its muscles coiled as if ready to bolt. A branch snapped somewhere in the darkness, startling them both. He held the rope tight and spoke softly to steady the horse. A cold wind swept across the paddock, carrying the scent of damp earth. The horse's breath formed little clouds in the night air. The veteran guided it back toward the barn, worry tightening his chest. As they passed under an old oak, he glimpsed a shape between the trees. It stood still and silent, its eyes shining like lanterns in the dark. The veteran froze, unable to look away from the strange figure. The horse snorted and reared, almost jerking free from its rope. He whispered a gentle command and urged it to move. With effort, he led the animal back to the barn's safety. Inside its stall, the creature paced restlessly, nickered once and stopped. The veteran shut the door and fastened the latch with trembling hands. He leaned close and wrapped an arm around its neck to soothe it. In the lantern's glow, he noticed fresh hoof prints leading into the forest. His blood ran cold when he saw how large and deep they were. A sudden knock rattled the barn door, and neither man nor beast dared to move. The veteran pushed open the heavy barn door and stepped into the chill night air, holding an aged lantern that cast a small wavering circle of golden light across the frost-kissed ground, carrying the faint smell of old timber. The loyal horse followed close behind, its hooves pressed softly into the damp earth, stirring the scent of fresh grass and old memories with each careful step, and faint echoes of distant battles seemed to drift on the breeze. Behind them, the veteran closed the door with a firm hand, turned the sturdy latch until it clicked, and scanned the yard under the pale moonlight for any sign of danger hiding in the shadows, as an owl hooted from a nearby oak. A sudden gust of wind whistled through the trees, blowing dry leaves across the ground in swirling patterns, and the horse stamped 1 hoof anxiously as its ears flicked toward the tree lean. Raising his lantern higher, the veteran noticed a thin layer of mist forming above the ground, drifting across the yard in ghostly waves that glowed faintly under the silver light of a hidden moon, and the distant cry of a night bird echoed through the still air. Beyond the low wooden fence, pale shapes began to shift among the fog, moving in slow, steady lines that seemed to form a strange parade of silent riders crossing into the barnyard, and the autumn air smelled of wood smoke. Alarmed, the veteran whispered the horse's name softly, but the mighty animal stood motionless, its dark eyes fixed on the mist, its shoulders tense as though preparing to bolt at any moment. Shadows melted and reformed in the swirling fog, and the horse edged closer, lowering its head as if offering silent support in the face of unseen danger. Hazy figures took shape as riders on horseback, silhouettes clad in old military uniforms from long ago, features hidden beneath folds of fog and time-worn capes. They stood perfectly still and silent, stark outlines against the mist as they stared at the living pair. The veteran's heart began to pound in his chest, and he took a slow step forward, lifting the lantern higher to try to catch a clearer view of these strange visitors who moved without a single sound. A heavy hush fell over the barnyard, broken only by the veteran's quickened breathing and the distant creak of a loose board in the barn roof, echoing like a warning drum in the silent night, and the veteran's boots sank slightly into the soft soil. One by one, the ghostly riders lifted their heads, revealing empty eye sockets that seemed to glow with dull light as their mounts exhaled puffs of misty breath into the air, each cloud hanging like frozen smoke rings. The veteran started with shock when he realized these figures were not living soldiers, for no metal or leather shone under his lantern, and not one responded to his presence with any human sound. The horse gave a low, urgent neigh that cut through the hush, its voice trembling like steel on stone, and the veteran felt the animal's desperation to flee back into the safety of the barn. With the lantern trembling in his hand, he watched in stunned silence as the spectral cavalry began to move forward in slow, measured steps, their hooves making no mark on the damp earth. Suddenly, one rider raised a ghostly arm in a rigid salute and pointed directly at the veteran's heart as though challenging him to face a memory he had long tried to forget. The lantern's light danced wildly across the riders, casting flickering patterns on the barn walls and making their shapes twist and stretch as if alive with restless energy. Then the entire group moved onward, drifting past the fence in perfect formation and fading slowly into the thicker fog that lay beyond the oaks at the edge of the property. The veteran could not bring himself to move, frozen in place by shock and awe as the world around him seemed to hold its breath until the last echo of their silent hooves disappeared into the trees. The horse nudged the veteran's leg with a soft whuffle, guiding him back toward the sheltering light and sturdy walls of the barn. He took a deep, shuddering breath to banish the cold dread in his chest, then turned and led the horse with steady steps back through the open barn door, though every step felt heavy with unease. Inside, the lantern's glow returned to a comforting brightness as he closed the heavy door behind them, sealing out the restless fog and the whisper of unseen riders. His heart pounded so loudly that he could hear it in his ears as he set the lantern on a wooden stool by the stall entrance, metal rings jangling softly as he laid it down. The horse paced in the straw-lined stall, its ears flicking to catch any stray sound or movement, nostrils flaring as it sniffed the empty air where the ghost soldiers had once stood. Leaning against a support beam, the veteran closed his eyes and let the silence of the barn calm his racing thoughts, telling himself these visions must be tricks of the night. He wondered if fatigue or emotion had conjured these apparitions, but a cold chill running down his spine told him this was no ordinary dream. A soft creak from above reminded him that the barn's old rafters shifted with every breeze, and he realized how thin the line could be between comfort and fear in a quiet place at midnight. Reaching into his coat pocket, he withdrew the empty pouch that once held bright apples and squeezed it in his palm, finding a small measure of comfort in its familiar worn leather feel. The horse pressed its head against his shoulder and let out a gentle breath, as if to show that it, too, trusted him to keep them both safe in that moment of dark wonder. With trembling fingers, the veteran stroked the rough mane and whispered soft words of reassurance, promising they would face whatever came together as they had so many times before. Steadying himself, he lit a second lantern hung by the stall door, its steady flame chasing the deepest shadows from the corners of the barn. He moved carefully around the stall, checking the latches on every door and fastening each one to keep the night's chill and mystery locked outside. On a small shelf above a rack of brushes rested his open notebook, and he snapped it shut with a decisive click, determined to leave these images on the page. Outside, the wind changed direction, carrying a hollow whisper like distant hoofbeats fading along a narrow trail, and the veteran paused to listen for any sign of their return. He took one cautious step toward the edge of the stall and peered through the slats, but all he saw was empty darkness and faint moonlight on dew-speckled grass. The horse settled into a corner of the stall, lower head resting on soft bedding as its breathing evened out, showing signs it was ready to sleep despite the night's strange encounter. The veteran sat in a wooden crate near the lantern, keeping it close so the slightest movement in the dark would be visible, and watched the gentle flicker of the flame in thoughtful silence. Outside, the barn walls groaned softly as if stretching, but inside, the only sound was the horse's calm breathing and the veteran's own measured exhale. As the first pale glow of dawn appeared beyond the roofline, he whispered, "We faced the shadows together," feeling a new bond forged in the mystery of that spine-chilling night. Dawn broke over the barnyard in glowing streaks of pink and gold as the veteran opened his tired eyes on a rough wooden crate and whispered thanks for surviving another strange night of memories and shadows, while golden light warmed his face and stirred soft hopes for the day ahead. He sat up slowly, massaging stiff muscles that stretched and cracked from the night's cold air and worry, and he stared at the sturdy stall where his loyal horse had sheltered from both fog and ghostly riders in perfect trust. A gentle breeze drifted across dew-soaked grass in rippling waves, carrying the earthy scent of fresh hay mixed with faint hints of apple blossoms from the orchard beyond the weathered fence as birds began their morning chorus. The veteran drew a deep breath of crisp morning air, feeling a warm spark of hope bloom in his chest like a new flower opening, and he rose to greet his noble companion with steady resolve shining in his eyes. He crossed the barn floor and reached the stall door, where he lifted the old iron latch with practiced grace, swinging the heavy wooden door wide to let warm sunlight flood the straw below and comfort the horse inside. The horse blinked at the sudden brightness, then whuffled softly and nudged the veteran's hand with its cool muzzle, offering a tender reminder that despite time apart their bond was stronger than ever before. Stepping into the open pasture, they left fresh footprints in the soft ground, each imprint a silent promise of new beginnings under the rosy glow of dawn's first light as dew sparkled like tiny jewels. He led the horse toward the place where he had discovered mysterious hoofprints the night before, running his fingers over crisp indentations still damp with dew and feeling his pulse quicken with anticipation. The prints formed an elegant arc leading away from the barn and climbing a gentle rise toward an ancient oak standing proud at the field's edge, its twisted limbs silhouetted against the brightening sky as if guarding secrets. With quiet determination, the veteran followed the trail, and the horse matched his pace with measured steps, ears pricked to catch the soft rustle of leaves and faint whispers carried on the breeze. Nestled at the oak's massive roots, he spotted a dusty leather pouch resting amid tangled grass and curling roots, its weathered surface promising a long-forgotten gift waiting to be uncovered by attentive hands. He knelt on the damp earth and carefully untied the pouch's leather cord, unveiling a gleaming saber blade etched with swirling scrollwork, each pattern a memory of battles bravely fought side by side. A thrill ran through the veteran's fingers as he lifted the weighty sword from its snug cover, recalling the first time he gripped its hilt under a foreign sky while wearing dusty boots and a determined heart. The guard bore his initials carved long ago in steadier times, and seeing those familiar letters reminded him that some ties between soldier and steed can never be broken by time or distance. The horse lowered its head to inspect the saber, its dark eyes shining with gentle curiosity and understanding, as if it sensed the weight of history resting on the blade. With thoughtful care, he wrapped the sword in fresh cloth and buckled it securely to his belt, feeling the familiar weight rest against his side like a loyal friend reunited after years of separation. As he stood, a distant roll of thunder rumbled across the hills, bringing back memories of thunderous artillery in fields far away, and he shivered as those echoes of war faded into the calm morning. The horse whinnied softly and stamped once, urging the veteran to return to the stable where morning chores and peaceful routines awaited, welcoming them back from a night of spine-chilling mystery. On their return, he noticed fresh hoofprints encircling the oak in perfect symmetry, as though unseen riders had drawn a silent map of remembrance around the ancient tree's trunk. He pressed a hand to the oak's rough bark and closed his eyes, feeling the pulse of life in its weathered wood and sensing that the tree bore witness to the passing of seasons and soldiers alike. Opening his eyes to the bright sky, he realized the spectral riders had come not to threaten but to return what he had lost to war and time, an unspoken apology carried on the midnight wind. With gentle gratitude, he stroked the horse's mane and whispered, "Thank you," knowing they had faced darkness together and emerged into a new dawn of understanding and hope. Side by side, they entered the barn and paused as rays of sunlight danced on dusty beams overhead, reminding them that every morning held the promise of renewal after long nights. He fetched a small tin of polishing oil and a soft rag, then set to cleaning the saber's blade with steady strokes that restored its shine while resurrecting memories of courage and friendship. The horse leaned against him with quiet contentment as he worked, resting its head on the veteran's shoulder in a gesture of trust that spoke volumes more than any words could convey. Once the blade gleamed bright, he hung it above the saddle rack with care, placing it where he could glance at it each dawn and remember the strength they had rediscovered as a team. Next, he guided the horse back into its stall and offered a generous bowl of fresh oats, watching as each grain disappeared eagerly while he looked on with a proud, hopeful smile. Outside, the barnyard echoed with cheerful birdsong, and the veteran closed his eyes to listen, letting the melody sweep away the last whispers of the night's eerie tension with gentle assurance. He refilled the water trough and watched sunlight ripple across the surface, creating dancing patterns of light that felt like tiny celebrations of peace and new beginnings. Taking a soft brush, he groomed the horse's coat with long, gentle strokes, humming a melody they used to share during long marches and letting the familiar tune warm his heart. The horse flicked its tail and nuzzled his hand in recognition, its eyes bright with appreciation for every caring motion that rekindled their unspoken bond. He tied a bright ribbon to the bridle, its vivid red hue standing out against the horse's dark mane as a festive symbol of their renewed partnership and shared resilience. With chores complete, he stepped outside to the orchard where pale pink blossoms drifted like snow in the air, and invited the horse to stroll beneath the fragrant canopy of spring blooms. They paused under heavy branches laden with fruit, and the veteran plucked a ripe apple, offering it to his faithful companion with a playful grin that warmed his weathered face. The horse reached up with careful lips to nibble the apple, chewing slowly as if savoring each sweet bite and casting a grateful glance at the man who had once again come to its side. A laugh escaped the veteran's lips, bright and free, as he watched the scene unfold and felt relief flood through him like a gentle summer rain after a long drought. Together they wandered deeper into the orchard, sunlight streaming through blossoms to cast golden patterns on the path, and overhead boughs forming a living tunnel of color. His heart felt light and steady, knowing that this day marked a turning point where old wounds would heal beneath the open sky and faithful companionship. As a gentle breeze whispered through the blossoms, the veteran squeezed the horse's neck and said, "Let's ride toward tomorrow, ready to face new adventures side by side." The veteran and his horse walked down the farm road toward open fields where they first trained together long ago. The grass swayed gently as they passed, each blade shining in the early light. The veteran patted the horse's neck and whispered, "Today we ride without fear." The horse flicked its tail and moved its head in agreement. They reached a low hill where wildflowers grew in bright reds, yellows, and purples. The veteran dismounted and let the horse graze while he picked a handful of flowers. He wove a simple garland and placed it around the horse's neck with a proud smile. The horse stood tall, its posture proud under the colorful wreath. Then the veteran climbed back into the saddle and urged the horse forward with gentle words. Together they rode up the hill, the wind in their faces and freedom in their hearts. At the top, they paused to look out over fields and forests stretching to the horizon. The veteran breathed deeply, feeling a peace he had not known since leaving the battlefield. The horse snorted softly and planted its feet firmly on the ground. The veteran guided the horse to a quiet stream where cool water ran over smooth stones. They drank together, the veteran cupping water in his hands and the horse lowering its muzzle for a drink. After resting, they continued along a narrow trail that led into a shady grove. Sunlight filtered through leaves above, creating dancing patterns on the path. The veteran smiled as the horse trotted happily beside him. They emerged into a clearing where an old stone bench sat under a large oak tree. The veteran helped the horse step over a fallen branch to reach the bench. Then he dismounted and sat beside the horse, resting his hand on its mane. A pair of young deer stepped shyly into view at the edge of the clearing. The deer watched quietly as if they understood the bond between man and horse. The veteran waved a friendly hand and spoke softly to them. After a few moments, the deer bounded away, leaving the pair in peaceful silence. The veteran stood and led the horse on toward a small wooden bridge over a creek. They crossed the bridge carefully, its boards creaking under their weight. Beyond the bridge, the farm's old orchard opened up with trees heavy with fruit. The veteran let the horse pick a ripe apple from a low branch. The horse bit into the apple and chewed happily, juice dripping in sweet drops. The veteran laughed as he watched, remembering days when they shared simple meals in muddy camps. Then he took a bite of his own apple and savored the sweet taste of peace. As the sun climbed higher, they turned back toward home, each step measured and calm. The veteran thought of how far they had come since the horse first failed to recognize him. He spoke words of thanks to his friend, saying, "You've given me courage once again." The horse whinnied in response, nuzzling his hand. They reached the barn as the shadows grew short beneath the midday sun. The veteran sun-dried the apple cores and stored them in his pouch to remind him of this day. Inside the stall, he groomed the horse clean with gentle strokes and a soft brush. That evening, as the sky glowed pink and purple, the pair stood side by side, content in the quiet comfort of home and the unbroken bond they shared.